Good day, fish tankers. Hasn't been a great week for me. I've lost this little fellow. It's one of my favorite fish, if not my favorite. It's of course the Siamese fighter or Betta male in the little nano cube sitting on my desk. Used to look at him every day, but sadly he's no more. He jumped out of his tank, and I thought, what can we learn from this situation? How can we prevent it from happening? Because fish do jump. And stick around to the end, because there is at least a happy, more hopeful ending. Now what happened? I came home and I was feeding my fish, and the little fellow wasn't there underneath his feeding ring. So I looked around and he wasn't in the tank. Looked through all the plants, nowhere to be seen, and eventually I found him here at the back of my desk on the floor, dried up. He must have gotten out somehow, and as you can see, I've got a lid here. I used to have a triangle cut out in the front. The previous Betta went out through there, so I closed that because I figured they jump after the food, so that's tightly closed. There where the light fitting is, you can see it's got some plastic bolts, and that blocks the exit. So given where I found him, he must have gotten out at this gap here at the back, which I keep open for obviously the wires of the equipment and the airline tubing. So he went out that way. They tend to jump alongside the glass. So that is how he got out, but how can we prevent this from happening in the future? I think firstly you need to be aware that all fish jump, but others jump more, even long-finned bettas. Killifish like these lamp eyes maybe not so much, but other killies like the clown killies, they will definitely jump and end up on the floor. Swordtails too are found to be jumpers. And I've even lost one of my clown loaches during 2020 in COVID, found him right up on the floor. They're still juveniles, but I never thought he would have gotten out where he got out. And then fish sometimes jump to escape bad water quality. Nitrite or ammonia will make them jump. So I tested the water in the cube, but as I thought, there was nothing wrong with the water, because it was a water quality problem. The other fish would show it, and they didn't. They were fine. So it's not the water quality in this instance, but it could be. And then bullying, sometimes fish jump to escape being chased. So keep an eye on aggression levels in your tank. And then use a lid, which I am doing anyway. These are the lids on the big tank. I drill holes in them for some air circulation. And there are these gaps at the back, and that's where that clown loach still managed to get out. So sometimes it happens and you can't do much about it. I don't want to have only a small hole, because I want to have some leeway to move the equipment if need be. Then a rim tends to help, because in this aquarium also has a gap at the back, but it has that rim, and fish jump alongside the glass, and that rim I think prevents it from happening. Also remember to return that feeding hatch, or to close the lid after feeding, because sometimes we forget. And then one can also lower the water level. I'm not a fan of that looks, I'm not going to do it, but maybe if you can have some hardscape sticking out with mosses, it will look better. Or else you just accept it as part of it with these rimless aquascape tanks nowadays. Inevitably now and then a fish might jump out and end up on the floor, but you know, putting a lid on will spoil the look of these tanks. And I'm kind of thinking, if a fish lives a life in that kind of environment, maybe it's a life well lived. But we have to move on. So I decided to get back on the horse and get a new Betta, and I contacted a local breeder here, Chandra Blighnout. This is her footage, to send me some footage. She bred all these Bettas. She also does Apistogramma and probably some other fish that I'm not aware of. But I went through all the footage of the Bettas that she had available. And look at this little guy. And I didn't want one that's too aggro, because I already have the Ember Tetras and the Ottos in there. So I wanted one of a calmer disposition. And so we sat with all these choices, but in the end I opted for this little fellow here. So we went on a road trip, as you can see, neatly packed in. And I like to drip acclimate my fish if they're only going to travel 2 or 3 hours. When I drip acclimate when I get home, I just siphon some tank water through a piece of airline tubing with a metal valve that slows it down to a drip, and then I wait till the tank water exceeds the bag water, and I let the fish into the tank. There the little fellow goes. Lots of new stimuli to take in. What did I do to prevent something like this from happening? I moved the glass way to the back as tightly as I can, so that's as small a gap as I can have. There's a small little gap between the two pieces of glass that I can't see him getting out of. Well, here he is exploring his new environment, looking around, and I hope he'll have a long, less eventful life than his predecessor who was there for over a year. Please guys, remember to hit the like button and please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that as always. So these are the tips to prevent fish from ending on the floor. And until I see you guys again, keep taking good care of those domestic denizens of the deep.